Now, there are warnings this morning that Britain is facing a housing shortfall of approximately 6.5 million homes. Andy Burnham is promising an ambitious construction and social housing agenda. But industry leaders say Britain can't build its way out of the crisis, with more and more builders going bust. John Carter, the Chief Executive of Stark Building Materials UK, is here. A very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Why don't we start with some, or potentially positive, we'll see how you frame it. What did you make of Andy Burnham's speech yesterday? And housing, building more housing of all types, was clearly very high on his agenda.
I think you've got to take the overall message as positive, and let's hope we're going to put some rigour and planning behind that. It's obviously lacking detail, so it's a vision. But overall, we've got to take that as positive.
Obviously, the current government have tried to build more houses themselves. They've passed some planning changes, which, to be fair, take a bit of time to come into effect. Does Andy Burnham have to revisit that and change planning laws again, or are there going to be some good effects to come from it?
So I think overall there has been some progress with planning. But if you talk to those small and medium-sized enterprises that are building locally small numbers of houses, they're still finding it quite rigorous, lengthy in time, expensive, and not getting good answers quickly.
You mean purely the sort of regulatory side of it?
That's right. The administration and the regulatory side of it.
Snapshot that for me today versus 20 years ago. How much worse, how much more burdensome has that got?
Yeah, so I think, it's always been a challenge, but I think given the manning levels that sit within the planning and the administration, it has got worse.
Obviously, planning is something that's locally administered. Another big part of Andy Burnham's speech yesterday was much more, devolution, and again, lots of details still to be ironed out, so we don't know exactly where it's headed. Is that something you welcome?
Very much so. We have branches right up through the UK, as high as Shetland and down in Penzance and across to Margate and Ramsgate. So we cover the whole country. I go to lots of big cities, whether it's Sheffield, Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, and they're really thriving. And I think this devolution will actually be positive for the construction industry.
Where are we in terms of sufficient labour supply to the construction industry at the moment? Is that still a problem?
Well, I think it's a massive problem, and I think we're really only just waking up to it now. I mean, it's reported that 25% of the builders today will be leaving the industry either through retirement or deciding that they've had enough in the next 5 years. Now, that for me is a crisis, and I think construction's really on its knees.
So what needs to change there?
So I think we've got to be much more thoughtful in planning. And for me, it was refreshing at least Andy Burnham was talking about a 10-year horizon. As a younger man coming through, everyone had apprentices and teaching people a trade. I mean, if you've got a trade, whether you're a tiler, a plumber, a carpenter, you can apply that and earn a good living. We're just not training enough young people to come into the construction industry.
Clearly, the current government came in to say they'd build 1.5 million houses by the end of the Parliament. To hear, at the moment, they're massively short on that. Yeah. Maybe they play catch-up in the later years, as we said, after the planning changes come into effect. When you hear another would-be Prime Minister make pledges on this sort of area, do you think, yeah, I believe it, or I've seen all of this before?
So I think most of us that are close to the industry, when we heard the 1.5 million by Keir Starmer, we didn't believe it in any shape or form. And he's done nothing really to put any structure behind that. With Andy Burnham, he's got a bit of a track record, in my opinion, in Manchester, where he has engaged the business and funding to achieve some good stuff in Manchester, and you hope now you can extend that to on a national basis.
Really interesting. John, thanks so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. John Carter from Stark Building Materials.